Hi there guys, so back with my 4th edition of Maple Small, which is my version of Maple Story. Now if you was to go back to the first video, so for those who are aware and you've seen this trailer, it is one playlist, one channel, one goal. And that is to build an NFT project with a game, with play to earn, basically grow a community with you. But if you was to go back through the channel and go to Maple Story Part 1, then these videos will play in order. So at the end of each video, as you know, you'll get a thumbnail at the end and you just click that and it goes to Part 2. The Part 2 there, Part 3, and this is Part 4. So I'm back on Skillshare. I've opened up my Unreal Engine, just going to double click on Maple Small and away we go. Now by the sounds of it, this next lesson teaches me how to put my character on the screen and then have them bouncing along the floor, and it's called collision. So I'll just hop over to Skillshare and let's have a look.
Let's now enable collision for our tiles. So what collisions are the thing that actually make those tiles walkable. So you can imagine if we add a character in the future, the character right now cannot walk on these tiles because they have no collision. So the character will actually fall through the tiles and fall through the ground. So we need to add a collision so the character can walk on these tiles. And this is very simple to do.
Now because I've paused in between videos, I'm not in the same environment as him. So let me just go to Unreal Engine and fix that. So I'm in here, go down to Content Draw, Environments, and then I believe it's TM Dragon 1. Let's double click. It's not. So Content Draw, Map. No, that was the first one I did. So he's in Map Main. Map Main. Map Main. There we go. So yeah, so although he's clicking through environments, you have to click on Map Main, double click. Let's just close that. There we go. I'm now in Map Main. I believe pros TM. Yeah, okay, let's go with that. So I'm just navigating
to do. So let's go over to the tile set. So let's go to tile set drag and row. And inside of this tile set, remember the only thing we did the last time was just to set the tile size to 30. But here you can actually also add collision. So clicking on this button called colliding tiles, now you can view the collision. Now, right now you can't see anything because we don't have any collision. So clicking on the first tile here, this one for example, you can click on this one called add box. And now you actually added a collision. So if I click save now, and I just want to show you that it actually added collision. So if I click on show up here and click on collision, now you can't see anything, and this is because inside of the tile set, you have to remember to click on refresh maps. This will refresh all of your tile maps. And now you can see it actually added collision. Now you can see these boxes appear.
Cool, so let's just hop over and do that. So I'm just playing with the... Right, so we want to be about there. Zoom in. So, okay, Content Draw, and then over to Environments. For some reason it's not loading properly.
Because inside of the tile set, you have to remember to click. And I just want to show you that this one, for example. Now you can view play also. This time was just over to the tile set. So let's go to tile set drag and road. And inside of this tile set, remember the only thing we over to the tile set. So let's go to tile set drag and road. And inside of this tile set, remember the only
So he's got a tile set list view, whereas I've just got the tile editor. So I need to find out how to get that onto the same screen. Single tile editor, and on his he's got nothing on the top left. So these are selected. Grid. He's got the grid selected. Angles and the arrow. As he's got that world map, none of these are selected. So we have the same thing selected. I still can't see. Have I moved something along? He's got nothing. So he's got tile set, arrow, tile set, arrow. I have to have something selected, surely. That says padded. He says padded. Blue. I'm missing this, aren't I? Drag and roll. Nothing to drop down and select. Edit. Assets. Normally you get a view finder, don't you? Tile set view. There we go. So yeah, just so tile set view for some reason was unticked. Okay, so I'm just going to go and do what it says. So if I click on the tile, and then we'll add colliding tiles. Let's just double check what he says.
thing we did the last time was just to set the tile size to 30. But here you can actually also add collision. So clicking on this button called colliding tiles. Now,
so you click on colliding tiles first, then then click and drag.
You can view the collision. Now, right now you can't see anything because we don't have any collision. So clicking on the first tile here, this one for example, you can click on this one called add box. And now,
right, so you can't click and drag, unfortunately. You just have to click one tile, add box, and it will do that box. So I assume, yeah, unfortunately you just have to add box like this, I believe. I am going to go ahead and do this, but if he says it's wrong, I will go back and change it and refresh map. So we go back to the tile map. Let's just put that up there. Back to the map itself. Now I did click refresh maps. She needs it along there as well, so add box, add box, add box, refresh map, back to main. I'm not seeing anything.
now you actually added a collision. So if I click save now, and
then refresh. No, still not seeing it.
I just want to show you that it actually added collision. So if I click on show up here and click on
there we go. Show collisions. There we go. Right, so as worked, all these boxes have gone in, so I don't actually need them on all these tiles down here. So let me see if I can remove those. Back to there. Oops. Yeah, undo all of them. So that was just Control and Z. That undid everything. So add the box just to the bit where they're going to be walking. Ground. And I don't know the shortcut to do this. Yep, just literally adding all of these in. Add box. The beauty about this tutorial is once you know how to do this, obviously one, the tutorial's there, and two, I don't need to come back to the tutorial. I would remember now how to add collision. So when I'm creating my world, this is actually super easy. Now, how does it work on a slant, I wonder? Box. I'm sure he'll tell me. But yeah, you kind of drop down like this, like a set of stairs. But I'm going to do this just so that if there are mistakes in the video, you can see how I go and correct those mistakes. So I'm going to click save, back to main map, and refresh tiles. There you go. So now you can see all those boxes are in line up there, and up the top, and up the slants. That is interesting, actually. You can see it does go up at an angle. Yeah, let me see how he fixes that.
Collision. Now you can't see anything, and this is because inside of the tile set you have to remember to click on refresh maps. This will refresh all of your tile maps, and now you can see it actually added collision. Now you can see these boxes appear, and this is the collision we just added, and we have to do that so that the character can actually walk on these tiles. Technically in programming, the character is walking on these small boxes, but it looks like the character is walking on the tiles. So going back here, and there is unfortunately not a method where we can select everything and click up here. We have to do it manually, but it won't take a long time. So click on here, clicking at box, very simple. We're just adding collisions to these tiles, and you have to do this for all of the tiles that you have used, just like that. For example, we don't need to add collision for these tiles because we haven't used them, but if you have used them in your map, you have to add collisions for them as well. So we don't add collisions for these ones because obviously the player is not going to walk on these tiles. So if I save here and refresh maps, you see here the tiles are added here, the collisions are added, and we don't really need to add collision down here because the player will never go beneath here, so we don't really need to. Now I want to make my collision boxes larger because you can imagine when the player are walking here on these boxes, there is a chance that, remember this is a 3D engine, there is a chance that the player will be pushed in a way where the player will fall here to the side and fall off the ground, so falling off the collision boxes. So just to eliminate that risk, I want to increase the collision boxes length. And we can do that inside of the tile map. Inside of the tile map here, we can go to here at the bottom, collision thickness. Let's set it to 250 for now.
Okay, so back. Content draw. He did actually go onto this one, I'm sure he did.
Let us chance that the player will be pushed in a way where the player will fall here to the side and fall off the ground, so falling off the collision. Collision boxes. So just to eliminate that risk, I want to increase the collision boxes length, and we can do that inside of the tile map. Inside of the tile map here,
let's close that. I'm trying to jump ahead too far, I think. Getting excited here. Tile map, collision.
We can go to here at the bottom, collision thickness, let's set it to 250 for now. Let us
Cool, okay, so 250.
click on save, and when we minimize, you can see the collision boxes are a lot longer, and we don't have a chance for the player to fall off the ground.
Cool, so then back to the map. There we go. He navigates a lot quicker than I do, but there we go. So yeah, they can't fall off. Cool. I'm loving this.
Because that is covered now. Okay, let's add collision to the rest of it. I believe we are missing this part here. So going to the tile set, and inside of here, let's also add collision to these ones. Actually, we are missing those. So adding a collision box up here. Do the same thing with this one. We also need to add a collision here to the side. So clicking add box, you can see here to the side, we don't really need collision all the way. If I refresh the map so we can see it, now it added collision all the way over here. We don't really need that. We only need to cover the tile. So what we can do is clicking on this one, and then clicking and hovering and selecting both of these vertices, and we can click and drag. So just like our viewport, I will maybe disable the snapping. Let's see, or actually it's fine, just like this. That is perfect. Doing the same thing here, I'm going to add a collision box, and taking these two vertices and reducing them like this.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw as I did. As he was tapping these, I saw polygon. Polygon is the angled ones, which I'm pretty sure he's going to get onto. So let me just add box to here and do what he said. Just bring that in slightly, perfect. And add a box there, and bring this side in, which is nice. Do the same with this one, add a box. Oh, no, I didn't select I think we just got to select, make sure these 2 points are selected, and then bring that in. And then that box there, make sure these 2 points are selected, and bring that in. And then these, add polygon. I can't get out of it. Yeah, let's try that again. So I am guessing click, 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 and then come off, and then see if I can. Yeah, that one was a little bit more fiddly. Click save. So that was a little bit of guesswork. Let me just pull this one down. That's what that does. Yes. And pull this in. And maybe. Ah, okay. Right, let's give that a go. Yeah, let's see what he does.
So now you can refresh the map and you can see what it looks like. This is what it looks like. So the collision is to here. And if we feel like this is too much, we can always go back and make it smaller. So now we are missing this one. Let's add a collision box. And let's select these two, move them closer. Do the same thing over here. Move them closer, just like this. And again, remember to click on refresh maps. So the last thing is we are missing this slope here because this one we also used. So I'm going to click on this first one and let's add a box. Now this one is a bit more tricky, so let's select this vertex up here. Clicking on delete on your keyboard will delete it. And now we only have 3 vertices. Now this one you can move down just like this. And let's move on to the next one. So this one here.
Oh my god, yeah. Teach myself a lesson, stop jumping ahead. So delete that. And let's move across. So, didn't realise you can just delete. So yeah, hover over these, delete, 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 and delete. Don't need that one in there at all. So, add a box, and then delete that point, and then move this up. And then there, add a box, delete that point, and bring that up. And don't worry, I will go and check this before I commit. Delete that and bring that up. Just have a look at what that does. So I need to add it to the other one. This sloping up the other way. So yeah, I haven't used this one in the map. Oh. So click there, add. Let's add it there. Maybe not. Let's see if I can delete that actually. Shall I add it there or there? Okay, let's add it there. See what it does. Right. This one. Delete. Bring that up. Maybe. No. Let's just leave that there. This one. Delete. Just definitely bring that up. Tempted to bring. It needs to be there, doesn't it? Let's go. I'm only experimenting. Let's delete that one. Perfect. Don't need to change that, I don't think. So all I did there was just took the snapping off the 10. I will put that back. Click save, refresh. How does that look? Oh dear. So I think this one looks okay. This middle one definitely doesn't look okay. This bottom one kind of does, but let me just take that snapping off. That one works. That one doesn't. So let me delete that. Does this one work? I think it does, but let me take that snapping off. Let's put that there. I want to move this across actually. I don't think this needs to actually be down here. And then add a box here, delete, and bring that down to there, and that across. Okay. Save, refresh, map. There we go. I will only know if that works during the game, I believe. Right, back to the video.
Click on add box. We want to move this one down, maybe just like this, and also move this one to the side. We don't really need collision all the way here. And I'm going to reduce my snapping because it won't let me move it here in the middle. So I'm going to reduce it to 5 instead of 10. And I think something like this works out for me. Now we're going to click on this one. You can see slopes are a bit more tricky to work with. So clicking on this one, we want to add a small collision here so the player doesn't fall. So clicking on the add box again, we can select this vertex, click on delete on the keyboard. We can take this one and move it closer. So if I can hit it here, moving closer, and then taking this vertex and moving it down, just like this. And then we can take the next one here and add a box. We can take this vertex and move it down. And this one we can just let be. I think this is a good curve. And the last one, there is a small bug. I tested it out earlier. We also have to add a very small collision here, else the player will actually, if I refresh the map and I can show you, the player will actually get stuck here at the top here. There's a very, very small gap that we can't see. And we have to add a collision here. And obviously this is because I've tested this before. What we just want to do here is we want to delete the vertex up here just like before. And we can move those very closely. Now, to see the specific number for these, you can go down here in the index collision data, going down to shapes, clicking on this index, and watching these vertices. So you can see when I move this vertex up here, this number changes. So I just want this number to be 14.9. So you can see that if I remove the snapping, the closer I move it down. And the last number is 15, obviously, here. So I want to move it to 14.9. And this one as well, so very, very, very close. This one, if I just move it to see which one it is, it's down here, 14.9. And I don't know why I said 15, 14.9, just like this. So both of them are 14.9. So there is a small collision here, which makes the player not go through the ground. And this is because I tested it before on my preparation project. So now we have all the collision.
So it looks like I need to spend a little bit of time on this, just so that I'm saving myself time. Let's say I do the next 80 modules and I forget what he said and what's going on. So I think I'm going to add a collision box here and just delete this side of it, just so that I capture this corner. And like I say, take that snappings off, just so that it covers the ground. And like I say, one in there, delete that corner and the snappings off. So I'm just gonna bring all this in. Now I do want to cover that ground. I don't think anyone's going to fall through. I know he said to essentially make that 1 pixel, and I know he's the expert. I'm not. But let me just do a box, just delete, bring that down. This is mainly so that, like he said, they don't fall through. And then save, refresh. I'm going to need a box here. Again, delete that corner, bring that down to there, and that to there. That covers that. And then a box there, delete, and bring that down, and actually that up slightly. Click save, refresh. And now if I have a look at the slants, I can't see an area where they would fall, although given what he said, let me just show you, a bit too close, just show you this, zoom out slightly, so you can see the player would bounce along this and actually walk in to that. I can see why now. So they would get stuck in this little corner here. So yes, I do need to bring this down and just make sure they don't get stuck in that tiny little area. And I think the small details do matter. So as he said, tile index, collision data, shape, index, and vertices 14.9, tab out of that, and that one 14.9, that is a negative 14.9 there. And this one, index, collision data, shapes, index, vertices, and then again 14.9 and negative 14.9, I think. We'll soon find out. No, that one is just yeah, so it's interesting. When I did the other side, it was negative 14.9, but this side was just 14.9. Bro, and then save, refresh map, back to map. Now you can see the player's not going to walk into that. Bro.
In here, which makes the player not go through the ground. And this is because I tested it before on my preparation project. So now we have all the collision set. Just remember always to click on the refresh map and click on save everything, and now you are good to go. So you can take a look at your map. You can see there is collision up here. We might need to reduce this one, maybe it's too far out, and you can also watch it here. But we have to have a character to run around the world and test this before we can say for sure. But now we have the initial collision done, and we can move on to creating our character.
Perfect.
It's now time to import the character assets. So I have provided for you here again inside of the course materials. There is a folder called characters. So clicking on that folder, and let's start with.
Now we're warming up. So let me just minimize this.
Arena. What I want you
minimize this and course materials. Okay, so I've just saved that to file.
What to do for now is just import the idle, the jump, and the run animations. So first, before we do that, let's go over to the assets folder. Let's make a new folder called characters.
Assets folder, new folder, characters.
And then inside of here, let's make a new one again called Serena. And then in here, we can import our assets. So I want to drag the idle, jump, and run, drag them into your project. And then inside of here, let's make a new one again called Serena. And then in here, we can import our assets. So I want to drag the idle, jump, and run.
So he's got 4 files in there. And this one, there's 5. So I'm just going to... He leaves out stab and pulls in the other 3, but I'm going to pull in 4. And I don't know why he may have updated it after the video. So let's click drag, go back to mine and click in there. Okay, just going to move that up to the top so I can see.
Drag them into your project, and when you let go, you import those textures. So actually we are going to create something called sprites and flipbooks. So let's make a new folder, and I'm going to call it textures, and I'm going to have these inside of this folder, and all of the flipbooks that we make will be out here.
Okay. So textures. So press Control, click the next 3, and then click and move. I learned that from earlier.
So inside of textures, remember when you import textures, and again, if you double click on them and zoom in, you can see Unreal Engine is smoothing out those pixels. And as I told you before, you have to select all of them. And if you want to select them like this, you can click on one, hold Shift, and click on the last one. It will select all of the ones. And you can right click, sprite actions, and apply paper 2D set.
The textures, Shift, sprite action, apply 2D texture settings.
Settings. And as before, you can see it removes the smoothness and you can see the pixels more clearly. Now you can see the texture comes with this animation. So you have the animation, you have the running animation, and they are put together in one texture. And now you have to create sprites out of those. So let's start with the idle. You can right click, and in sprite actions you can say extract sprites. And in here you have to go here to the and in here, and now you have to create sprites out of those. So let's start with the idle. You can right click, and in sprite actions you can say extract sprites. And in here you have to go here to the top right and click on grid instead of auto. And then you have to specify how large the grid is. Now I made this in Photoshop, so I know the grid is 180 by 180. And if you download something from the internet, they will tell you how large this grid is. So 180 by 180, and it will extract those animations as single frames. So clicking on extract down here, you can see it extracts them to single frames, and these.
Cool. So let's get that again. I was doing that as he went along. So grid 180 by 180. Extract, and then I'll do that with the others as well. So sprite, extract, grid, then 180 by 180. As he says, if you do download these, they should be in the downloads as well. I've done that one. Jump. Shouldn't really need that, but yeah, that's already there. Extract and run. Sprite action, extract, grid, 180 by 180, extract.
Are called sprites. Now sprites are static images. So here in our level, you couldn't really drag a texture and drop it on top of here, because you can see it replaces whatever you are dragging it on top of. So I'm going to click on Control Z. But sprites are static images, and you can actually drag those inside of the level. So if you have something static, for example a barrel that never moves, you can actually add that here inside of your level. But our character has animations, so we don't really want to drag static images because these are actually animations. But we will work with the animations later on in the next video. So let's delete. I'm going to delete this material that it created whenever I dragged this texture on top of it, just like that. Now I'm going to rename the sprites. Usually I delete this in the front, and just remember you have to pay attention to the numbers. So this is number 0, 1, 2, 3. So you have to do that in order. And here, the first one, I'm going to call it S for sprite, S idle, and 0, 1, just like that. So we are a bit more organized. This one is 0, 2 now, and 0, 3.
Cool, just gonna go and do that.
And 0, 4, just like that. So now we have the idle, and let's do the same thing with the jump. You can do it yourself just for practice if you want to. You can right click here and go to sprite actions and extract sprites. Select grid up here, and again 180. Extract the sprites, and again pay attention to the numbers. It says 0, 1, 2, 3. So don't think that you can go in here and call this one 0 because this one is number 3. Sometimes what I do is just click away from the folder, so click away somewhere else and go back to the folder, and you can see it sorts them as you want it to. So this is the first one.
Again, I'm going to go and do that. So we'll come out of there, go back in to sprite 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So what does he call it?
S run 0, 1.
I choose to go from 0, just because I find that easier. And then I don't actually need to change the numbers.
And doing the same thing with the other ones. So it does take a little bit of time to organize your folders, but in the end, when they are organized, you'll have an easy time working with it. Now, the last one is the jump, and this one you can see the jump only has one animation. So it doesn't make sense to right click and say extract sprites because you really only have one sprite. So the thing you want to do is right click and just click on create sprite instead of extract because you only have one sprite. And let's call this one as jump. Alright, so now we have created our...
No, I did extract it anyway. Let's jump. And both of them do the same thing. So.
Sprites, let's save everything and let's move on to the next lesson.
So yeah, because he misses climb from his videos, I'm going to go S climb 0 Climbo and S climb 1. Let's climb 1.
So now that we have created sprites for our character, now it's time to animate those sprites. So what you want to do is, for example, let's start with the idle. you can select all of them. So idle 1, you can hold Control, idle 2, 3, or 4. Or a quicker way to do this is click on the first one, hold Shift, and click on the last one, on the number 4, and we'll select the whole thing here in the line. Now you can right click, and up here it says Create Flipbook. So clicking on Create Flipbook, it will create one. And I usually, instead of S in the front, I usually write FB for flipbook. So this is the idle flipbook. You can now double click on the flipbook, and you can see now this is animated. But right now it's animated too quickly. So I want you to change the frames per second here to the top right. So I played MapleStory yesterday, and I saw how quick the animation was, and it was about 2 frames per second. So writing 2, and you can see now it's animated. This is the idle animation. Now let's do the same thing for the run. So run number 1 to 4. You can right click, create a flipbook, call it FB run, and you can double click on it again. And for the run animation, it is 6 frames per second. Of course, you can make it faster. For example, if you want your character to run this fast, or just have the animation be this fast, you can do that. But for me, I'm trying to imitate MapleStory as much as I can, and it looks like their animation is about 6 frames per second, just like this. Okay, let's close it down. And the last one, we have the jump. Now, we can create a flipbook out of this, and we have to, because later on, when we are creating our characters, the character wants an input of flipbook. So we can't really use this jump sprite. Remember, this is a sprite, this is a flipbook. We have to make this into a flipbook because the character later on needs a flipbook. So even though it's 1 frame, we have to create a flipbook. So let's right click and create a flipbook out of the jump, and let us call it FB jump, like this. And obviously this is only 1 frame, so I'm going to just change this 1 frames per second to 1, and we can close it down, and we can go ahead and
Who else says Facebook in the head when they do FB? I do.
and save everything. So now we have created our flipbooks. I'm going to move those flipbooks out of the texture folder. So I'm going to move them to Serena here and click on move here. So now we have.
Again, he doesn't mention anything about climb, so I'm going to create a flipbook out of climb. And he doesn't say anything about the speed, so I'm going to just guess and do something like 3. FB, double click, and then something like 3. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then click save.
Those flipbooks, and these textures, we don't really need to see them again. This is why I created.
And then move the flipbooks to Serena. There. Flipbook.
A textures folder, just so it's more easy to look at, because we only really need those flipbooks. Blueprint is the visual scripting language in Unreal Engine. So when you are writing blueprints, believe it or not, you are a programmer. You're programming. Instead of writing traditional lines of code, you can code the whole game by simply adding nodes and connecting them together. So it's a visual scripting language. Blueprint is as powerful as any other programming languages out there, whether it's C++, C#, or any other language. You can create whatever you wish by using Blueprint. Right now we are creating a mini version of MapleStory, but you can also create Fortnite, Metal Gear Solid, Rust, or even Elden Ring. You can program any idea with Blueprint, so the only thing that's limiting you is your imagination. Whatever you want to program, you can do that with Blueprint, and it's also optimized and runs nicely. With that said, let's jump right into learning.
And this is why I'm creating the game, because I know it's possible to build the framework for free.
The basics of blueprints. Let us now talk about blueprint classes. So here in any random folder, I'm going to right click. I just want to show you the blueprint classes for now. You can right click, and up here you can click on blueprint class. You can also find this under blueprints, this one called blueprint class. So the same thing, but it's faster just to click up here. So these are the different classes that you can create in Blueprint, and I want to start with the first one. So the first one we have is an actor, and you can see the description here to the right. It says that an actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. So a very simple actor, for example, it can be a table, it can be a chair, it can be a hammer. So anything that can be spawned into the world, just an object. The next one is a pawn. And a pawn is an actor that can be possessed and receive input from a controller. And what this means is a pawn is something that the player can control. So in another course I made that you can see here on the website is that I am creating a ball, so a sphere moving around. And this sphere that's moving around is a pawn because I wanted the player to control this sphere, to move around with the keyboard. So a pawn is an actor that can be possessed and receive input from a controller. So you have to make whatever you want into a pawn if you want the player to control that object. You can't make an actor and want the player to control that object. You have to make it into a pawn instead. Next we have a character. And a character is a type of pawn. So you can see there is a relationship. So a character is actually a pawn. A character is a type of pawn that includes the ability to walk around. So whenever you want to make a character, it's just, you can imagine a human with 2 arms and 2 legs walking around, then you have to make a character. But if you want to make your character something like a ball or a sphere rolling around in the world without, it doesn't have 2 arms, 2 legs, you can go ahead and create a pawn. So this is the easiest differentiation. So when you have a character, 2 arms, 2 legs walking around, you can go ahead and create a character instead. Then you have something called a player controller. And a player controller is an actor that is responsible for controlling a pawn used by the player. So you have to think of this is not really the controller that you have at home, your Xbox controller or your PlayStation controller. You can imagine this as the brains of the character. So this is the brain of the character. Every character that you spawn in the world will have a player controller. And inside of here, you can add codes such as user interfaces. Or if you want to make a single player game, you are creating also movement, you can do that inside of here. But we will be working with all of those later, so don't worry about this. This is just the basic explanation for now. And then the last one I want to talk about is called the game mode. And this is almost self-explanatory. The game mode base defines the game being played, its rules, the scoring, and other facets of the game type. So for example, if we have a shooter game, you have capture the flag, you have how much time you have per round. And for example, in MapleStory, if we wanted to make an event, for example, we can define how much time this event will take and so on. So just the rules of the game. For example, in capture the flag, when you capture the flag from a team, it will give you some points. And these points can also be written down inside of the game mode because it's the rules of the game. Now, since we are working with 2D right now, so all of these are 3D, since we are working with 2D, you have to click on this one called All Classes. And here you can search for paper. You can see we have a lot of classes, and these are just the basic ones that we use all the time. And you almost never go in here unless you are working with advanced stuff. For example, a saving and loading system, which we will do later on, hopefully. So in all classes here, you can search for paper, and paper is just the pixel art 2D here in Unreal Engine. So for example, instead of this actor up here, which is 3D, we can create this one called Paper Sprite Actor. Or we can create a flipbook actor if we have a flipbook. Remember, flipbooks were the animated sprites put together. So if you have an animation, you want to use a flip.
Yeah, right click, blueprint class, all classes. And then, as he says, type in paper.
Flipbook. If you have a static item, you want to use a sprite, and then you also have a character. So instead of using this character up here, because this is a 3D character, we have to use this one called a paper character, and this one includes a flipbook. You know, we made flipbooks for our character that we can put here inside of our paper character. So these are the basic classes that we want to use, and mostly we are not going to use those up here. We are going to add a player control and game mode because these are necessary, but for all of these, we're mostly going to work down here in our paper character, paper sprite, and our paper flipbook actor. Let's now start by creating our first blueprints. So to do that, let's go in the content folder. You can right click here and let's make a new folder called blueprints. And inside of this folder, and by the way, you can give folders colors. So if you can right click here on the blueprints folder and you can click on set color. Sometimes I do that just to organize myself. I just select the blue color so I know it's blueprints, just like this, for example, and you can see it clearly. So inside of here, you can again right click and select blueprint class, and let us create a game mode. Every game that you create have a game mode and a player controller. These are the basic things you start with in a game. So let's create a game mode, and let's call it GM as a prefix for game mode, and I usually call it the name of the game. So Maple Story for this one. So the next one, again, right click, blueprint class, click on player controller, and call it PC for player controller, and again call it the name of the games. So Maple Story. Now, obviously, you have to create multiple game modes if you have multiple game modes. So, for example, in Counter-Strike, you have something called Deathmatch, you have Capture the Flag, you have 5 versus 5 players. So you have different game modes, and you can, when you create multiple game modes, you can, of course, instead of calling them the game name, you can call them, for example, GM Capture the Flag, so calling it the name of the game mode. But for this one, we only have one game mode, so I'm just going to call it Maple Story. And now to make this game mode work on our level, you have to, let's first save everything, so file, save all, and let's go to edit, and inside of the project settings, and in the project settings, you can click on maps and modes up here. So remember, in maps and modes, previously we edited the startup map to our map main. So now what we want to do is also set our default game mode. This is the base one that the engine uses. So I'm going to click on it and then click on GM Maple Story. is our custom one. Then I want you to click on this small arrow beside selected game mode. Now you have to change the default classes. So you can see here it says the player controller class. We just made one, so clicking on here and changing it to PC MapleStory. We also have to define our default pawn class, but we don't really have one right now, so we will skip this for now. And let's close this down. Now, inside of this map you are in, you also have to remember to go to the world settings. So if you don't have this world settings open, you can click on window, and then you can click on this one called world settings to open the window. But here in the world settings, you also have to remember to change this game mode override. So clicking here, don't have this world settings open, you can click on window, and then you can click on this one called world settings to open the window. But here in the world settings, you also have to remember to change this game mode override. So clicking here, clicking on GM MapleStory, and I'm going to click on this arrow just to make sure that the player controller is correct, just what I set it to. In the project settings, so PC MapleStory. And you can also see here, if you double click on the game mode, you can see here to the right inside of the class defaults. So here to the right, you can see if I make this smaller, it says player controller is PC MapleStory. So it set it automatically because we did it inside of the project settings. Okay, we don't really want to work inside of here right now, so let's close it down. So now we have created the basic game mode and the basic player controller. So let's go ahead in the next lesson and create the character.
Well there guys, obviously I try and keep these videos under about 30 minutes, so thanks for watching and join me in the next one. We're getting very close to animating that character in the 2D world, and we've only really spent, it's less than 2 hours on this to get this far, and we've gone from a complete blank canvas with no skills whatsoever to a 2D platform game with an animated character, or nearly, very nearly. Keep watching and see me in the next one.
Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my seat. Know that they ride or die.